The engine of his Mercedes purred to life, but before Billionaire CEO Daniel Carter could shift into drive, a small voice sliced through the leather-scented silence. "Don't move!" The command came from behind him, not the polished British accent of his chauffeur, but the trembling tone of a child. His grip tightened on the steering wheel as his eyes met those of a little black girl crouched between the seats, her Hello Kitty backpack smeared with dirt. "They're watching," she breathed, her gaze darting to the glass skyscraper where Carter Enterprises glittered against the Manhattan skyline. "Your CFO and that lady with the diamond watch. They said you'd be dumb enough to fall for it." Daniel's pulse hammered against his Rolex. Tomorrow's $500 million merger with Tokyo Telecom was supposed to be his crowning achievement, the deal his longtime friend, Richard Boone, and executive assistant Victoria Chase had orchestrated for months. The girl's next words turned his blood to ice. "They laughed about page 37. Said you'd sign it while bragging about the sushi menu." A memory flashed, Victoria handing him the contract with a sticky note on page 36. "Try the Toro, it's divine." "What's your name, sweetheart?" Daniel asked Thumb, hovering over his panic button. "Maya," she whispered, clutching a tattered copy of Charlotte's Web. "The janitor's cart was by your car. I hid when I heard them talking." Her voice broke as headlights swept across the parking garage. Two silhouettes emerged from the elevator, Richard's broad shoulders unmistakable even in shadow. Daniel did something he hadn't done since his daughter's leukemia diagnosis 3 years ago. He trusted his gut. With one tap, he activated the car's blackout mode, plunging them into darkness as the duo passed inches away. "Looks like Carter took the bait." Richard's chuckle filtered through the glass. Maya's small hand found his sticky with melted Skittles. In that moment, the man who'd built an empire on spreadsheets remembered what real courage looked like. As taillights faded, Daniel pulled out his encrypted tablet. "Maya, how'd you like to help me rewrite some paperwork?" Her gap-toothed grin was all the answer he needed. Across town, Richard and Victoria toasted with Dom Perignon, oblivious that their carefully laid plans were unraveling not by a corporate rival, but by a homeless bookworm and a CEO who'd just rediscovered his soul. The real merger would happen at dawn, a titan of industry and a street-smart kid joining forces to prove that sometimes the mightiest weapons are a child's wisdom and a second chance. Daniel's fingers tightened around his phone as Victoria's message glowed on the screen. "Trust me as you always have." The words tasted like poison. Across the diner booth, Maya licked ketchup from her fingers, her eyes locked onto his. "They really think you're clueless, huh?" she mumbled through a mouthful of fries. Before he could reply, his phone buzzed again, a calendar alert: dinner with Richard, 8 p.m. Le Bernardin. A pit formed in his stomach. That reservation had been made weeks ago, back when he still believed his inner circle was loyal. Maya's small hand suddenly slapped the table. "Hey." She pointed to the diner's TV where a news ticker scrolled tech mogul Richard Boone, named keynote speaker for tomorrow's Innovation Summit. Daniel's breath hitched. The summit was his event, the one he'd personally funded to announce the merger. Richard wasn't just stealing his company. He was stealing his spotlight. A waitress refilled his coffee, her gaze lingering on Maya's ragged clothes. "Your daughter's adorable," she said, with forced cheer. Daniel's chest clenched. Daughter. The word he hadn't let himself think since the funeral. Maya kicked him under the table. Her whisper urgent. "Play along." He forced a smile, draping an arm around her shoulders. "Thanks. She's the brains of the family." The lie burned, but not as much as the realization that this child, a stranger, had his back when his own team didn't. Back in the car, Maya rummaged through her backpack and pulled out a crumpled flyer for a Queens homeless shelter. "This is where I stay sometimes. The lady who runs it, Ms. Rosa. She's got a nephew who's a hacker." Daniel's eyebrows shot up. "You're telling me a shelter director's relative can break into corporate servers?" Maya rolled her eyes. "Duh. He fixes the shelter's Wi-Fi for free. Also," she leaned in, grinning, "he really hates rich guys who cheat." At a red light, Daniel opened Richard's last text, "Can't wait to celebrate tomorrow, partner," and typed a reply with deliberate slowness, "Neither can I." He hit send just as Maya gasped. Through the rear window, a familiar silver Porsche glided past Victoria's blonde updo, visible in the passenger seat. They were heading toward Le Bernardin. Without thinking, Daniel swerved into a U-turn. Change of plans, kid. We're crashing a dinner party. Maya whooped, buckling her seatbelt. You're way cooler than you look, old man. As they tailed the Porsche through Manhattan's glittering streets, Daniel felt something unfamiliar uncoiling in his chest. Not just rage, but the electric thrill of a man who'd finally stopped playing by the rules. Somewhere between the diner and destiny, the billionaire and the street kid had become a team. And by sunrise, Richard and Victoria would learn the hard way. When you kick a good man down, you'd better make sure he doesn't land near someone with nothing left to lose. Daniel stared at Diana's message. Good morning, boss. The same words she'd sent every day for a decade. Only now they felt like a predator, purring before the kill. Across the room, Maya stirred under the blanket, her braids spilling over the couch cushion. She looked younger in sleep, the streetwise edge softened. His phone buzzed again, a news alert. Breaking Carter Enterprises, CFO Richard Boone to lead $500 million merger amid CEO's health concerns. A photo showed Richard grinning beside the Japanese investor's one hand possessively on Victoria's shoulder. Maya's eyes fluttered open, instantly alert. They moved without you, she said, reading his face. Daniel's knuckles whitened around his phone. They're not just stealing my company. They're making it look like I'm incompetent. A memory surfaced Richard 3 months ago, casually suggesting Daniel take a vacation after his stress-induced episode. The way Victoria had nodded her pen, poised to book the psychiatric retreat. Maya yanked her backpack open. Ms. Rosa's nephew came through. She tossed Daniel a thumb drive. Your CFO's been moving money to the Caymans since last year, and your assistant. She smirked. Turns out she's been selling your meeting notes to Z-Tech. Daniel's blood ran cold. Z-Tech, his fiercest competitor. All those coincidental leaks over the years. A car honked outside. Through the penthouse window, they saw a black town car idling Diana early as always. Maya tensed. She can't see me here. Daniel hesitated, then pressed a key into her hand. Service elevator to the garage. Take my Aston Martin. Her jaw dropped. The what, the silver one with the red seats? Tell the guard you're my niece. As Maya vanished, Daniel straightened his tie and opened the door. Diana stood there crisp in her Chanel suit, her smile not reaching her eyes. Ready for the big day, she chirped. Behind her, 2 unfamiliar men in suits lingered, too broad-shouldered to be assistants. Daniel's pulse spiked. They weren't here to escort him. They were here to contain him. Actually, Daniel said, stepping back to let them in, I thought we'd take the chopper. Diana blinked. The helicopter. Of course. He gestured to the men. These gentlemen can ride with you. I'll meet you there. The second the elevator doors closed on their confused faces, Daniel bolted for the service stairs. Maya was waiting in the Aston Martin engine, growling. Took you long enough, she said, tossing him a baseball cap and sunglasses. As they peeled out, Daniel glimpsed Diana's town car screeching back around the block. Maya whooped, cranking the radio to a hip-hop station. Bet they never saw this coming from the stressed-out CEO. Downtown, the merger signing was already underway at the St. Regis. Richard stood at the podium, oozing charm as cameras flashed. Then the screens flickered. The investors gasped as bank transfers, secret emails, and a damning voice memo of Richard plotting to oust Daniel filled the room. The real mic-drop security footage of Victoria planting fake documents in Daniel's office time-stamped yesterday. Chaos erupted. Richard's face purpled as he spotted Daniel in the back, Maya grinning beside him. Yumi, Daniel agreed, stepping forward. Funny thing about trust, Richard. It goes both ways. He turned to the Japanese delegation. Gentlemen, let's discuss how I will be leading this merger. Outside, Maya high-fived Ms. Rosa's nephew, who'd live-streamed the takedown from his van. Told you he was cool, she said, watching Daniel command the room not as a betrayed CEO, but as a man who'd finally seen the truth. Sometimes the people society overlooks hold the real power. And in the end, the black homeless kid and the white-collar warrior had rewritten the rules together. Daniel's hands trembled as he scrolled through Gabriel's files, each transaction a knife twist. They weren't just stealing from me, he whispered. They were stealing from the employees' pension fund. The dates lined up perfectly every time Marcus had pushed for cost-cutting measures, Another million vanished into offshore accounts. Maya slammed her juice box down. That's why they fired you, Gabe. You were getting too close to their dirty money. Gabriel nodded grimly, zooming in on a photo of Diana entering a Cayman Islands bank. I'd started tracing these transfers last year. Next thing I know, HR is calling me in for inappropriate workplace behavior. His jaw tightened. Funny how the security footage of that alleged harassment conveniently disappeared. A notification chimed Diana again. Where are you? The investors are arriving early. Daniel typed back with icy precision. Stopped for coffee. Tell them I'll dazzle them soon enough. He looked at Gabriel. How do we flip this? Gabriel grinned, pulling up a video file. Remember that charity gala Marcus hosted last month? The screen showed Marcus slapping a Japanese investor's back, laughing as the man slipped him an envelope. Turns out our boy forgot the hotel's security cameras have audio. Listen. The investor's accented voice hissed, 30% upfront, the rest after you force Miller's signature. Maya gasped. They're not just laundering money, they're selling company secrets. Daniel's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered to a frantic female voice. Mr. Carter, this is Lena from building security. Those men Diana sent, they just threatened the front desk to access your private files. I thought you should know. Click. Gabriel was already strapping on a shoulder holster. They're panicking. That means we're close. Maya tugged Daniel's sleeve. We need proof they're threatening you. Like now. Daniel's laugh was razor sharp. He opened his laptop, typing rapidly. Remember how Diana insisted I install those state-of-the-art office cameras last year? The screen split into 4 live feeds, including Marcus and Daniel's private office shredding documents while Diana hissed, Hurry! The idiot could walk in any... Maya whooped. They're literally digging their own graves. Gabriel grabbed his keys. I'll get Lena's sworn statement. Maya, I'm going with you, she interrupted, shoving the thumb drive into her pocket. Ms. Rosa's nephew needs to see this footage before they lose it. As they rushed out, Daniel paused at the door. His penthouse, his company, his life all nearly stolen by people who thought power belonged only to those who played dirty. But in the end, it was a homeless black girl, a disgraced Latino investigator, and a janitor's niece who'd outsmarted them all. He sent one last text to the Japanese investor's change of venue. Meet me at the FBI field office in 30 minutes. Bring your lawyers. Then he strode into the elevator, the weight of 15 years of betrayal burning away, replaced by something fiercer, the unshakable knowledge that real justice wasn't found in boardrooms. It was forged in the streets. Daniel's cufflinks gleamed as he straightened them, onyx, a gift from Marcus last Christmas. How poetic. He glanced at the trio in his penthouse, Maya bouncing on the balls of her feet in a junior executive blazer Gabriel had scrounged up. Gabriel loading a voice recorder into his tie clip, and Ms. Rosa's nephew, whose name he'd finally learned was Javier, hacking into the conference room's smart system from his laptop. Remember the play, Gabriel murmured. You walk in like nothing's wrong. Sign nothing until they're all in the room, especially the Japanese reps. Maya tugged Daniel's sleeve. And when Diana points to the signature page, you say, Let's toast first. Daniel finished mimicking Diana's saccharine tone. He'd practiced the line all morning. A toast would force them to lower their guards, clink glasses with their own fingerprints. Javier suddenly whistled. Dude, you gotta see this. The laptop screen showed a live feed of the 42nd floor conference room. Richard was pacing, checking his Rolex, while Victoria arranged folders with surgical precision. But it was the third figure that made Daniel's blood freeze, a hulking man in a suit too tight for his shoulders, standing sentry by the door. Security or muscle. Maya squinted. That's Tony, the wrench Marino. He fixes problems for rich guys in Queens. Gabriel's hand drifted to his holster. They brought a cleaner to a merger meeting. Classy. Daniel's phone buzzed a text from Victoria running late. We're all waiting. The smiley face looked like a sneer. He typed back, just parking. Have champagne ready. As they rode the elevator down, Maya slipped her hand into his. You good. Daniel exhaled. 15 years ago, he'd stood in this same elevator, sweating through his cheap suit before pitching investors for the first time. Today, he wasn't the underdog. He was the wolf in sheep's clothing. The doors opened to a hallway lined with Carter Enterprises accolades. Richard's laughter spilled from the conference room, followed by Victoria's tinkling chuckle. Then a third voice, deep-accented, said, "Once he signs, how quickly can you transfer the patents?" Daniel froze. Patents. The ones protecting his cancer detection AI. The real prize. Maya's nails dug into his palm. "They're selling your tech," she whispered. Gabriel's eyes flashed. "Change of plan. Javier—" "Already on it," the hacker muttered, fingers flying. A second later, every screen in the building flickered to life, displaying 2 words in blood-red font: mute recording. Inside the conference room, chaos erupted. Chairs screeched, Victoria shrieked, and Tony the Wrench lunged for the door just as FBI agents swarmed the hallway, guns drawn. Daniel stepped forward, Maya at his side like a tiny shadow. "Gentlemen," he said, nodding to the Japanese investors whose faces had gone ashen, "let me introduce you to my real executive team." As the cuffs clicked onto Richard's wrists, Victoria lunged at Daniel, her manicured claws outstretched. "You ruined us!" Maya caught her wrist mid-swipe. "Nah," the girl said, grinning. "He just outplayed you." And as the agents led them away, Daniel finally understood the truth. The greatest power wasn't in boardrooms or bank accounts. It was in the unshakable bond between a man who'd forgotten his strength, a girl the world had ignored, and the justice they'd carved from the ashes of betrayal. Daniel strode into the Carter Enterprises boardroom at exactly 2:05 p.m., the weight of 15 years of partnership heavy in his chest. Richard and Victoria stood like royalty at the head of the glass table, the Japanese investors' empty chairs, waiting like a stage set. "Daniel." Richard boomed, arms outstretched. "We were starting to worry." His Rolex glinted as he gestured to the contract, thick as a tombstone with neon yellow tabs marking every signature line. Victoria slid a Mont Blanc pen across the table, her smile razor sharp. "Just like we practiced, yes, page 37 first." Daniel let the silence stretch. Outside, Manhattan glittered under the summer sun, oblivious to the war about to erupt in this air-conditioned arena. He tapped his briefcase twice, Gabriel's signal. "Before we begin," Daniel said, "I want to show you what real due diligence looks like." The screens behind him flickered to life, displaying security footage of Victoria planting falsified financials in his office. The timestamp read, "Yesterday, 9:14 p.m. Richard's cufflink hit the table with a clink. "This is irrefutable." Gabriel entered, flanked by 2 FBI agents. He dropped a file thicker than the merger contract. "Wire transfers to your Cayman Islands account. Recordings of you bribing the SEC investigator. Even the text where you called Daniel a senile cash cow ready for slaughter." Victoria lunged for the documents, her Chanel necklace catching the light. "These are forgeries." Maya's voice piped up from the doorway where she leaned against Javier. "Nope. We got it all from your cloud backup." She tossed a thumb drive onto the table. Password was Diamond Queen 2023. Real creative. The Japanese investors chose that moment to arrive freezing at the threshold. Daniel addressed them in fluent Japanese, "Gomen nasai." "These criminals tried to sell you stolen patents." He switched to English for Richard's benefit. "The cancer detection AI you were auctioning off, I patented it under my daughter's name 3 years ago." Richard's face purpled. "You lying?" Special Agent Collins cut him off, reading Miranda rights as the cuffs clicked shut. Victoria screamed, "You'll regret this," as they dragged her past Maya. The little girl just smiled. "Nah, but you'll regret underestimating the cleaning lady's kid." As the chaos settled, the lead investor bowed to Daniel. "Shinrai shite mo ii desu ka? Can we still trust you?" Daniel looked at Maya, his accidental salvation, his fierce little ally, and saw his daughter's eyes staring back. "Hi," he said firmly. "But this time we rewrite the contract together." And in that moment, the man who'd built an empire alone finally understood true power wasn't in controlling the game, but in changing the players. Daniel watched through the floor-to-ceiling windows as federal agents shoved Richard into the back of a black SUV, his custom Brioni suit wrinkled beyond repair. Victoria had stopped crying now, her tear-streaked mascara leaving charcoal trails down her cheeks as she spat curses at the arresting officer. A small hand slipped into his. "They look like rabid raccoons in those zip-tie cuffs," Maya observed, pressing her nose against the glass. Daniel choked on a laugh that tasted like redemption. "That's not very professional, Ms. Carter." Maya spun to face him, eyes wide. "Ms. who now—" Gabriel cleared his throat, holding up his phone. "Tokyo Telecom just emailed. They want to renegotiate the merger without the embezzlement clause this time." He nodded to Maya. "Kid's got a point about the raccoons, though." The social worker coughed politely. Mr. Carter, about Maya's placement? Daniel didn't hesitate. She's coming home with me. The words surprised even him, but the way Maya's entire body lit up made it feel inevitable. Wait! Maya dug into her Hello Kitty backpack, pulling out a crumpled photo. You should see this first. The Polaroid showed a younger Richard shaking hands with a man Daniel recognized instantly, Senator James Worthington, the anti-corruption crusader who'd blocked Carter Enterprises' military contracts last year. Written on the border in red ink, Project Trojan Horse, 12% kickback confirmed. Gabriel whistled. That's not just corporate fraud, that's treason. Daniel's phone buzzed. An unknown number with a DC area code. The message was brief. We need to talk about your former partner. Discreetly. Maya snatched the phone, typing rapidly before Daniel could react. New phone, who dis... She hit send with a smirk. As laughter filled the room, Daniel realized the truth. Richard and Victoria had been so focused on destroying him, they'd never noticed the quiet revolution happening right under their noses. A revolution led by a homeless girl, a disgraced investigator, and a CEO who'd finally learned that real power wasn't taken, it was shared. Outside, the sun dipped below the skyline, painting the city in gold. Somewhere, a prison van rolled toward Rikers, and in a penthouse high above Manhattan, a little girl danced through the wreckage of Betrayal, her laughter the sweetest revenge of all. The afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Carter Tower's executive suite, painting golden rectangles across the mahogany desk where Daniel spread out the documents. Maya, no longer the scrappy street kid in dirty clothes, but a polished scholarship student in her St. Anne's Academy uniform, frowned at the black and white photo of a woman in a 1980s sundress. That's Grandma Josie. Her finger trembled over the image. But she never told me. Gabriel leaned in, his detective's eye catching the resemblance first. Same chin, same stubborn eyebrows. He tapped the birth certificate beside it. Josephine Carter. Changed her last name after the falling out. Daniel watched Maya's face as the pieces clicked together, the way her breath hitched when she saw the old newspaper clipping about his uncle disowning a daughter who'd married a black jazz musician in 1987. The way her small hands traced the family tree diagram where their branches connected. So when I hid in your car that night, Maya whispered, you weren't saving a stranger, Daniel's voice roughened. You were saving family. A single tear plopped onto the paperwork, smudging the ink of Josephine's signature. Maya swiped at her cheeks angrily. She knew. All those times she told me Carters always land on their feet. She was preparing me to find you. Gabriel cleared his throat. There's more. He slid forward a faded custody petition from 2018, Josie's desperate attempt to gain legal guardianship before her cancer diagnosis. The system failed her. Failed you both. Daniel knelt until they were eye to eye, his Brioni knees grinding into the Persian rug. But we're rewriting that story now. He pressed a key into her palm, the same penthouse key she'd mocked him for valuing over people 6 months ago. Welcome home, Maya Carter. Outside Manhattan glittered like a promise. Somewhere downtown, Richard was rotting in a cell, and in a quiet office 20 stories above the chaos, a lost niece collapsed into her uncle's arms, sobbing out 15 years of loneliness in the safety of finally being found. Gabriel discreetly snapped a photo, not for evidence, but for the framed collage he'd already started Maya's first day of school. Daniel teaching her to drive his Aston Martin badly, the three of them at Josie's grave planting the magnolia tree she'd loved. The caption wrote itself, family isn't blood. It's who shows up when the world burns down. And as Maya's laughter bubbled up through her tears, Daniel realized Richard's betrayal had given him an unexpected gift, not just a thriving company, but the daughter he'd always wanted. Somewhere Josie was smiling. The ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria shimmered with crystal and hope as 500 guests raised their glasses to the Carter Foundation's anniversary. At the podium, 16-year-old Maya commanded the room with the same fierce grace she'd once used to navigate back alleys, her vintage Dior gown a far cry from the tattered Hello Kitty backpack she'd carried that fateful night. The first scholarship recipient I ever selected, she said, gesturing to a young man in the front row, is now studying robotics at MIT. The crowd erupted as Javier Jr., Ms. Rosa's nephew, the hacker who'd helped expose Richard, stood with a shy wave. And this year we're expanding to 3 new cities. Daniel watched from the wings, his chest tight with pride. On the giant screen behind Maya, a photo montage played their first awkward dinner as guardian and ward. Maya teaching him how to make proper mac and cheese. The two of them christening the foundation by literally burning the shredded remains of Richard's plea letters in their fireplace. Back at their table, Gabriel, now head of security for all Carter Enterprises, grinned as he adjusted his earpiece. "Got a surprise for you both." He nodded toward the service entrance. The doors swung open to reveal a woman in a correctional officer's uniform escorting a haggard Victoria Chase in prison khakis. Maya's gasp echoed through the suddenly silent room. "Parole hearing next week," Gabriel murmured. "Thought she ought to see what real power looks like." Victoria's hollow eyes scanned the ballroom, the children's choir from the Bronx shelter singing "Rise Up," the Wall Street Journal headline on the screens proclaiming Carter Tech patents save thousands of cancer patients, the way Maya instinctively reached for Daniel's hand. Something broke in Victoria's expression then. Not anger, not even regret, just the dawning horror of realizing she'd traded this legacy, this love for a few $1,000,000 in a prison jumpsuit. Maya stepped down from the podium, her heels clicking like a metronome as she walked straight to Victoria. The room held its breath. "You look hungry," Maya said, simply pressing a gold-embossed menu into Victoria's shackled hands. "We saved you a plate." As the guards led a shaking Victoria away, Daniel pulled Maya into a hug. "That," he whispered, "was your grandmother's kindness shining through." Maya kissed his cheek, her smile brighter than the chandeliers. "Nope. That was our kindness, the Carters' secret weapon." And as the orchestra swelled, Daniel finally understood the full circle of their story. Richard and Victoria had given him the gift of emptiness, an empire with no heir, a fortune with no future. But the universe in its infinite wisdom had sent a brave little girl to teach him that true wealth wasn't measured in stock prices or square footage. It was measured in the lives you changed, the family you chose, and the love that no betrayal could ever tarnish. Somewhere beyond the ballroom windows, New York City pulsed with possibility, and in the heart of Manhattan, two unlikely souls, a once lonely billionaire and the street-smart princess who'd stolen his heart, danced into their future, forever bound by the most powerful force of all. The unbreakable bond of those who remake the world together. 10 years to the day after Maya had crawled into his car, Daniel stood on the rooftop garden of Carter Tower, watching the sunset paint the Hudson River gold. Below them, the city hummed with life kids from their foundation, interning at Fortune 500 companies Javier's cybersecurity firm, protecting those same shelters where Maya once slept, the cancer detection patents they'd donated saving lives in hospitals worldwide. Maya joined him, her graduation cap tucked under one arm, her Columbia Law School acceptance letter glowing on her phone. "You're brooding again," she teased, bumping his shoulder. Daniel smiled, turning the thick envelope in his hands, the one marked Federal Correctional Institution, Danbury. Richard's 7th request for a meeting. Maya plucked it from his fingers and tossed it into the rooftop fire pit. The flames licked at the prison stationery, turning his former partner's pleas to ash. "Some people never learn," she said softly. The wind carried the scent of magnolias from Josie's memorial tree as Daniel pulled his daughter close. He thought of all the things he might have been, the lonely tycoon hoarding wealth, the bitter man chasing vengeance, if a brave little girl hadn't shown him a better path. You know what your grandmother would say right now?" Maya's eyes sparkled with Josie's same wisdom. "That we've got better things to do than look backward." She pointed downtown where their newest project, a tech incubator for foster youth, was lighting up its inaugural sign. The Josie Carter Center blazed in neon pink, her favorite color. As the first stars appeared over Manhattan, Daniel realized this was the secret no business school could teach. That life's greatest returns didn't come from crushing your enemies, but from lifting up the unexpected angels who crossed your path. That real legacy wasn't written in court victories or quarterly reports, but in the quiet moments like this one when you realized the scared little girl you'd taken in had grown into a woman who would change the world. And as Maya laughed, twirling in her cap and gown under the skyscraper lights, Daniel Carter, once a billionaire, now simply a father, knew the truth with absolute certainty. The best revenge was a life well lived, a family well loved, and a future brighter than anything his enemies could have ever imagined.